Good. Okay. Uh, I'd like to welcome you all to the Pittcon coffee break. Uh, this topic of this coffee break is life sciences. My name's Neal Dando. I'm the president of Pittcon 2021. And in case you didn't already know, the Pittcon 2021, which will be in March, uh, will be the first virtual Pittcon ever since, and we started over 70 years ago. So um, adopting a virtual platform is something we've worked quite hard at and gotten rather familiar with. So let's get started. What I'd like to do is have a little fun here for a bit. So what I am going to do is just tell you a little bit about Pittcon, but I really am going to focus on things that you might not know about life sciences. And most of these things I didn't know either until I dug them up to make for this, to prepare for this conversation. Um, so a little bit about us. Um, our this is a statement of our mission. Um, our purpose is to advance and enrich science by connecting scientists worldwide, facilitating exchange of information, ideas, and showcasing the latest in laboratory equipment. And this is what we've always done. What Pittcon started over 70 years ago by two societies, volunteers from two societies. I myself am a volunteer. I've been involved in Pittcon since the very early 80s. And Pittcon started in the in the late 1940s. Two societies, the Spectroscopy Society of Pittsburgh, the SSP and SACP, Society of Analytical Chemistry of Pittsburgh, in the 40s wanted to figure out a way. Scientists wanted to have a way to get together and just chat. Because Pittsburgh was a city of old science industry, right? We had Westinghouse, we had Alcoa, PPG, railroad, steel industry. So that's how the two societies were born. And as their meetings grew, Pittcon became the first actual official Pittcon in 1950 and quickly outgrew Pittsburgh. And since that time has been held in larger cities that have larger convention centers and a greater number of hotel rooms to accommodate the visitors for Pittcon. What's exciting about this year being the first virtual year is that we can accommodate people now regardless of those boundaries. We don't need to depend on a convention center. We don't depend on available hotel rooms. So so it should be quite exciting for us to see what kind of audience we bring in this year because of the fact that we've knocked down all the barriers to entry, the travel, which typically, and the cost of that typically was the biggest barrier. Another interesting thing that you probably don't know, because we haven't really communicated it quite well, is that over 90 cents of every dollar of our net income goes right back out the door within a year. So the money generated by Pittcon is essentially split in half given to the two societies, and those two societies have a job of giving that money back out. We do a range of things, ranging from the micro scale, where we have an inflatable planetarium, for example, and we drive it around to schools within 200 miles of Pittsburgh. Okay, well, that's micro, that's very close. We have grants and scholarships that are awarded on a national level. On an international level, we funded schools, building schools in third world countries. We've started an initiative this year, which is still in the formation stages, with Foldscope to allow for teachers around the world to apply for grants for these inexpensive microscopes, so that students can explore their world on their own. They can take them home, and the teachers can teach them how to use the microscopes, how to prepare slides, put them in. So we hit from local to international with the money we raised from Pittcon. Okay, Pittcon we've really taken a look at ourselves, at what is our impact statement here with our show, and we really hit 10 areas. Okay, so it's a pretty broad show, but by defining our areas of emphasis, it helps us better with respect to our marketing or program content. We can make sure that we've got technical content equally distributed between these focus areas. And I'm not going to read through all of them, but the purpose of the coffee breaks, such as this one, are each one focuses on a different subject area. And as I mentioned before, the subject for this coffee break is the life sciences. So one of the things I'd like to do is put this knowledge sharing in the form of a questionnaire. And I'm not going to ask you for feedback. I'm not going to poll you. I'm going to ask a question, show you a list of potential answers, and have you think about the answer to the question, and then we're going to chat about it a bit. So the first question is the easiest one. For some of you, could also be a hard one, which is, what of the following fields are considered branches of life sciences? The possible fields are biochemistry, neurochemistry, botany, zoology, ecology, fermentation, metadata, and informatics. So I'll just give you a few seconds here to think about this. But again, the question is of these, which of these are subfields of life sciences? So I'm going to go to the next slide. The answer is all of them. Now, you might argue, well, maybe not G. Well, okay. Let's chat about that just briefly. So life sciences are essentially the study of everything that respires, okay? Whether it respires aerobically, anaerobically, and again, obviously A through F, that's what they are, right? They're subjects about different creatures that respire. The one that's not is the metadata and informatics. And of course, what has impacted the life sciences more than that, right? That the data that's out there, being able to organize it, track it, search it, use it for to communicate information, archiving that information. Well, that's what metadata informatics is all about. So medicine, pharmaceuticals, life sciences, a range of fields are metadata is a subset of those fields. It's like analytical chemistry, right? What's analytical chemistry? Analytical chemistry is a subset of just about every scientific field there is, because it's about characterization. Physical, chemical characterization. Metadata is about data characterization. So that's my argument for saying A to G is the correct answer. Although if some of you said A through F, I get it. I understand. So let's try again with something that has a bit more dialogue to it. So quiz question number 2. Did you know there's an annual breakthrough? It's called the Breakthrough Prize. And did you know that there's a breakthrough prize in life science that's awarded every year? Well, one, there is, and quite frankly, it's the largest science award there is. If you win a breakthrough prize, you get $3 million. So, so it's huge. And so, who do you think funds this? Okay. Well, the bottom line is it's a group of people, and so the possible answers are Sergey Brin, and if you don't know who that is, he and Larry Page founded Google. Okay, and again, if you're breathing, you know what Google is. Mark Zuckerberg, of course, the founder of Facebook. Yuri Milner, who founded NetBridge and Mail.ru. Again, the names of a lot of the names I'm going to read here are huge internet companies, and NetBridge and Mail.ru. Those companies essentially serve 86% of the entire internet market in Russia. Okay, and Yuri Milner was instrumental in transferring U.S. companies over to a Russian platform. So he made the equivalent of Google, the equivalent of Alibaba, and others over there, and that's to serve the Russian market. Ann Wojcicki, again, founder of 23andMe, and again, with all the ads out there about the ancestry DNA testing, 23andMe is huge in that field. Jack Ma, Alibaba, again, a huge company. Alibaba specializes in business-to-business connectivity worldwide. Ma Watan, probably a name you aren't so familiar with. He's the founder of Tencent. Again, Tencent's one of the top 5 internet companies. I might talk about Alibaba before. Alibaba is actually the world's largest retailer in e-commerce, company. Tencent is the world's largest gaming company. So if you're a younger person, you know who Tencent is. If you're an older person like me, you might not be familiar with the name of that company. Yo-Yo Ma, again, that's the name probably, if you're older like me, that's the name you're most familiar with. Again, a brilliant cellist and musician. Just a little bit about him, because he's such a darn interesting person. Yo-Yo Ma was actually born in Paris to Chinese parents. He started out playing, violin, piano, viola, and then later settled on the instrument for which he's most famous, which is cello. And that was started that was at the age of 4. So he started performing at 4.5. He performed for the US Presidents Eisenhower and Kennedy at age 7. He's got over 90 albums and won over 18 Grammys. So I just couldn't resist, just because, geez, I'm talking about a prodigy. So all of these people have made a lot of money, okay? And so the bottom line is who do you think's in, who do you think's out? So select your answers, because we're gonna go to the answer to the question. Okay, the answer to the question is everyone except Yo-Yo Ma. And I couldn't resist. With Jack Ma, Ma Watan, I figured another person with Ma in their name would be a good person to throw into the mix, but he could easily have been part of this group. So again, essentially all the large internet-based companies in the world, the founders of those companies, their foundations, have gotten together to do this award. So the 2 things we're going to talk about next is a little bit more about the Breakthrough Prize, and I want to talk about the latest winners, because it's just phenomenal. So as I mentioned before, the answer here is A through F. So the Breakthrough Prize, as I mentioned earlier, is science's largest prize. It's honored more researchers with monetary awards than any other science prize, with more than $250 million being awarded to almost 300 leading scientists. And that's because some of these awards aren't for an individual, they're for a group of people. So when you do the math, you say, well, 3,000 times 3 million is more than 250 million. Well, that's because obviously award was at some times given to more than one person. And the prize is intended to help scientific leaders gain freedom from constant grant writing and the financial constraints of running R&D programs, to have more time to focus on their ideas. So as I mentioned, I want to focus, and these awards are often like the Oscars. They're equivalent of the Oscars in science. So in the COVID age, these awards were awarded virtually. So I'm sure there will be some sort of similar kind of event for these people a little bit later here as we pull out of the COVID era. But the awardees are David Baker, University of Washington and Howard Hughes Medical Institute, Catherine Duloc at Harvard and Howard Hughes Medical Institute, Yukming Dennis, and he's at the University of Hong Kong. And actually, I put Yukming's name in incompletely. His full name is Yukming Dennis Lo, L-O, it's the last word, and Richard Ewell at NIH, National Institutes of Health. So I'd like to talk about each one of these, because what they got their awards for is just phenomenal. And some of these names you've probably not heard of. I was not familiar with some of these people until preparing for this talk. So in alphabetical order, I'll go through them. David Baker, as I mentioned, U Washington. His award, he was cited for developing technology that allows the designs of proteins that have never occurred before in nature. That's a phenomenal concept, because there have been trillions and trillions and trillions of proteins formed by nature. He's come up with a way to engineer them that don't have nature as their phenomena. So you can either wait for proteins that are required for medical purposes, or build your own. And he came up with a way to do that. One of the ways he did is he's the inventor of the open source software Rosetta. And I'm not talking about Rosetta Stone, the language one. Rosetta is software for computational modeling and analysis of novel proteins. So And because it's open source, it means it just epitomizes collaboration, right? So the potential this holds is for developing universal vaccines, I mean antivirals, medicines to fight infection, and not having to pick from the molds, bacteria, things we get our hands on, being able to actually a priori design them. Okay, so the Rosetta software is the software that goes into all the protein folding, all the computations, and has all the computational strength required to be able to do that three-dimensional modeling and AI to be able to develop new materials. Okay, just the material choice happens to be proteins. Catherine Dulac at Harvard University got her award for, and this is again fascinating, for deconstructing the complex behavior of parenting. Okay, why does a parent care about a child? Why does a father care about a child differently than a mother in humans, in animals? Why do they compartmentalize their tasks automatically? Okay, is that because there's a physical difference between men and women neurologically? So what she managed to show is that the exact same wiring is present in both sexes. This isn't a physical, this isn't an issue of neurological wiring. So she actually proved that male and female animals have the same wiring for parenting. It's the management of that wiring, how that behaves in the animal. So let me say it differently. The same neural wiring that controls parenting is present in both sexes, but it's the regulation of that neural wiring that causes different parenting behavior. And part of the body that's involved in that is a hypothalamus. And she's actually been able to prove that. She's actually been able to make males parent like females. Males lose their parenting, parents lose their parenting behavior. Her species of specialization was doing this in mice, but this isn't unique to mice. So, but again, that's interesting, interesting information. Yuckming Dennis Low, the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Boy, talk about medical impact. This person, his group, discovered that fetal DNA is present in maternal blood. Okay, well, what's the breakthrough there? Well, obviously that maternal blood can be used for testing. It doesn't involve going into the womb to sample amniotic fluid or sample something from the child. So this is huge. He proved already that maternal blood can be used for prenatal testing of things like Down syndrome, trisomy 21. And again, both of those, if you're not, most of you probably heard of Down syndrome, probably not so much trisomy 21. Both of those are typically have people who are born with these survive but have a limited lifespan, and other genetic disorders. But this technology is executed over 7 million times each year in over 90 countries, okay, for prenatal testing. So imagine that, you go in, you get some blood drawn, you get all these tests, you don't have to have more invasive sampling. So Yuckming Dennis Low is often referred to as the father of non-invasive prenatal testing. Richard Ewell, National Institutes of Health, his citation is for elucidating a quality control pathway that clears damaged mitochondria and thereby protects against Parkinson's disease. And these clips I've gotten here are actually from the publicity statements from the Breakthrough Awards. So that's why I'm explaining them a little bit more detail, because these are very elegant the way they're stated, but it still doesn't give quite enough detail. So how this is huge is at NIH, Ewell leads a team of researchers at NIH's Neurological Disorders and Stroke group. And in particular, he studies Parkinson's disease. One of the things that he showed is that there are disease-causing mutations in genes that are called PINK1 and Parkin. And these are involved in failures or flaws in how energy generating organs are eliminated from cells. So when I say energy organelles, the first one that should pop into your mind is mitochondria. Okay, although there are others, but mitochondria is the most thought of one. And he showed that when that clearing pathway breaks down, it causes damage to your brain, and that damage is related to Parkinson's disease. So the implication here is huge, that you could protect people or stop the progress of Parkinson's disease. So again, when you look at these 4 people, it's obvious why they got these prizes. The impact of their work is interesting. And just kind of a last thought, like in case of Catherine Dulac, you look at that work she did on parenting. Well, okay, you know, historically that would be considered like a psychology or psychiatry thing, and not a medical issue. But you know, she stuck with that and proved that this is a medical issue. In fact, the way it happens, that the neurological wirings there is how it's managed that causes behaviors. It isn't simply talking about things. So life sciences is a very broad category, and again, these people just embody the best of the best. So let me go to my next one here. Okay, so life sciences programming at Pittcon. So if you're someone that could consider themselves in the life sciences field, what do we have to offer you? Well, then we're not done with the question Q&A, just in case you're wondering. So obviously our technical program. Okay, we've got invited seminars and invited speakers and contributed papers and posters in the life sciences field. We've got short courses that are life sciences subjects, networking sessions, so you can talk with like-minded people working in a similar field, maybe have similar issues they're dealing with that like to just compare notes on. We have an exposition where we've got the equipment that's being sold to allow advances or help with research in these fields. And our employment bureau. So if you're looking for a job, would like to be connected with a potential employer, you can not only do that, you can actually have your interview occur during Pittcon. We have chat rooms that can be set up to allow interviewing during Pittcon virtually. So we have a range of opportunities for the life sciences field. And if you want to learn more about these, just see our website, pittcon.org. So continuing on, rather than a Q&A, I looked up some interesting life sciences facts that are a little bit more obtuse that you might not know of, that you might find interesting. So, you know, we all know about NASA, right? NASA's been getting a lot of advertising, done an excellent job with the space telescopes and the rocket missions. So the Kellys, twin brothers, okay, one went into space for a year, okay, to the International Space Station. Interesting genetics experiment, right? Identical twins have identical genes. So they could see what happens when one's put in space for a year, the other's not. And most of us know, you know, you go into space, you have more potential exposure to radiation, but it's a different environment. You're weightless. The amount of stimuli is not the same, right? You're cooped up in a small space. You're not out doing all the things we do here on Earth. So when he came back, they did a number of comparisons, one of which, probably the thing you'd think most obvious, at least for us older people, is he was 2 inches taller when he came back. So when he didn't have the gravity compressing the disc in his spine, he actually got taller. Now again, that didn't last, right? He recovered, but 1 year in space got 2 inches taller. Now, what's really interesting is changes in gene expression. So these aren't actually changes in the genes, but changes in how his genes are expressed. So even though and with this, the gene expression has not recovered. So although his height returned to normal, the changes in gene expression have not, and they may, but they have not yet. And as possibly as much as 7% of Scott's DNA has changed permanently, how those genes are expressed. And the 2 areas that seem to have the greatest, that this seems to impact the most, are uh, sight and hearing. So why would that, again, I can hand wave all I want, but why would you think that might be why that would be the case? Well, think about what sensory areas would be most likely to be affected, right? When you're, I'm sorry, I said sight and hearing. I meant sight and smell. There are less visual stimuli in space, right? You have a box. Everything you're going to see is in this box for a year. There's no new things, and smells. Quite frankly, think of something that's very important, right? We put humans in space, so we put all these extra things in space so a human can survive there. Well, one of the things that has to happen is you have to control the odors in that environment. You don't have the stimuli that you have on Earth, right? You smell foods, you smell all these things, drive by a sewer, car exhaust, none of those for a year. So, but it's an interesting statement about how your body evolves quickly to external stimuli. So here's a case where he was denied external stimuli and his body responded in kind. So ideally, those issues will recover, but they're certainly recovering much more slowly than his height. Another interesting fact, researchers at Yale University and University of Oviedo in Spain, and it's about the north middle part of Spain, Oviedo, sequenced the entire genome of Lonesome George. You might have read about him, okay? A couple of years ago. Lonesome George is the last of the Pinta Island tortoises of the Galapagos. And George was over 100 years old. Okay, most of us, when you learn about Galapagos tortoises, you learn they live forever, right? Well, why would that be interesting? Well, what would be interesting there is not only do they live forever, they can reproduce when they're that old. So the interesting thing there was, what about them can we learn that would help us with longevity? And the thing that they have found is gene variants associated with a strong, again, logic here, a strong immune system, efficient DNA repair, cancer resistance, right? These are the reasons sharks are often characterized, because cancer is not an issue in sharks, it just doesn't exist. So, but with Galapagos tortoises is the same sort of thing. You know, how do they live so long? Why is an old tortoise essentially as functional as a young one? And it's because of their bodily functions they have that are different from humans, and what can we learn from them? So what I tried to do during this time is I tried to hit you with just some interesting things about life sciences in general, some obtuse facts, and just have some fun with the broadness of this field, but also the significance of this field, the magnitude of the research going on in the life sciences field. So I don't have any more questions for you, but I thought maybe some of you might have a question for me.
Yeah, actually going back to the informatics, are there a lot of life science programming at Pittcon that focuses on metadata and informatics?
A good point. And the answer to that question, so do we have metadata informatics? Yes. I mean, so that's been a big subset of the science field, because obviously when you're looking at databases, what have we done over the years, right? We've taken analytical equipment, characterization equipment, and made it easier to do complex diagnostics by a lab practitioner or a technician, okay? It used to be you had to have a PhD to be able to take the data and go from data to hypothesize structures. Now you can take a mass spec, you can take a nuclear magnetic resonance an analysis, you can do other analyses, and algorithms will calculate that for you, and that's all metadata informatics based. So so we have it on a bunch of different metadata, and informatics is present in many different platforms in the Pittcon technical program, ranging from life sciences, biopharma, neuroscience, and just classic instrumentation development. Any other questions?
Actually, someone had said they didn't know what my question was. I think you probably answered.
Okay.
About informatics.
Okay. Okay.
Is there a lot of life science programming at Pittcon that focus? I'm sorry. Have life sciences always been a focus within Pittcon's programming?
Okay, so, and I'm looking at my partner over here who's actually seeing the questions on his screen and reading them to me. So the question was, has life sciences always been a part of Pittcon's programming? And the answer to that is okay, probably not in the very early years, okay, 40s, 50s. But since then, yes, we just didn't call it out. So one of the things we've done differently, starting last year, actually, is we called out, we defined specific tracks. Those 10 tracks I showed earlier. And we use those for multiple things, but two of the bigger ones are to make sure our technical program is distributed equivalently among those tracks, that we represent them all as best we can on an equivalent basis. And then also that we market to all of them. One of the things that we've fallen down with in past years is not marketing to the very tracks that are included in our technical program. So so the answer is yeah, life science has been there for quite a while. We just didn't historically call it out as that and define it as that. So now if you are an attendee at Pittcon, you can actually go in and simply put in the track name in our search field, which will be at the top of every single screen in the virtual platform. And it will show you everything that we've identified or the submitter, the presenter or company has identified as a life science track opportunity.
Pittcon's going to be a virtual show from now on. Will it ever be a face-to-face show again? Okay,
so the question was, is Pittcon going to be virtual only from now forward? And the answer to that's no. No, in fact, I wanted in the worst way to have a face-to-face. In fact, I was hoping we would have a hybrid. So at the end of 2020, we took a three-prong track where we were thinking virtual only, hybrid, which is, face-to-face and virtual, and I'm sorry, I said it wrong. Face-to-face only, hybrid, face-to-face and virtual only. Okay, so in October, we said that that's it. We must go virtual only. It's the safest thing we can do for attendees, for exhibitor, and for ourselves, the volunteers like myself that go down to run the show. Will we do that going forward? No, I can, barring something unforeseen, I mean, I'm very sure we will have a face-to-face show next year, ideally a hybrid show where there's virtual content only. Because what we did this year, which is really interesting to us, is being virtual only. This may be the only virtual only Pittcon we ever have, or certainly the only virtual only Pittcon we have for a few years. So we decided to just break down the walls, the box that you get in when you think of a physical show, right? So normally we would go Saturday through Wednesday. We do that for travel reasons, right? To help people cut down on costs and have them not have to take off work so many days. We don't have to do that with a virtual show. So now we're going to be Monday through Friday, the March 8th through 12th, 2021. And what we're doing is reaching out to a broader audience, because now people can come who might not have come before because they either can't get away for the travel, they can't afford that time. If you travel, again, you usually have a day on the front or back end, those costs. So now I expect we'll see more students, more people from outside the US that couldn't come, either normally couldn't come or because of COVID reasons couldn't come. And it would make sense that we keep that going forward, that the virtual component, so that people who can't come to the United States can participate in Pittcon. Now, the other thing that's pretty interesting about being virtual that I hadn't anticipated in the beginning was you're not constrained with co-events. So say there were two presentations you wanted to see, they were same day, same time, or you had an appointment with a vendor on the floor and it was the same time as a talk you wanted to see, or an interview. Not a problem, right? So what will happen in a virtual show, there'll be our technical program will be live Monday through Friday for 1 week. That means if Dr. Neal Dando is giving a talk at Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning, you won't see that talk until Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay, but after that, that talk's on demand for attendees. So if you miss that talk, big deal. You can come back and watch it on demand. The only thing you'll miss is you'll miss the live Q&A. So all talks will have live Q&A, okay? But what'll happen is, say you came back a week later, saw my talk, you can email me right there. There'll be a link right there. You can email me. That'll come to my email, and I can answer you. So even if our tech program and the expo hall will be open for 3 months, but there's a limited live period. That limited live period is the tech program will be live from 8th through 12th. That's Monday through Friday. The exposition will be open live for 3 days, Monday through Wednesday. And why do we limit it to that short time? It's a lot of work for the exhibitors. Okay, during that live period, they're on their computer, they're waiting. If you have a request, they're going to respond to you immediately. Okay. After the live period, they'll still get that request right away. They might not, but we're not requiring them to respond immediately to you. So that's how we define. That's what was pretty cool here is we've totally eliminated the conflicts of simultaneous events that have been an issue, especially when you have a big show like ours. It's really kind of hard to make sure all programming is out there in a manner that doesn't cause a conflict for people. That problem should be gone this year, or in any show that has a virtual component. Any other questions, Scott?
No more questions.
Okay, so I guess I have one last slide, and that slide really is I want to thank you for participating, and I hope to see you there. Okay, I'll be there virtually. You'll actually see me every day of the live period. I'll get 5 minutes or a few minutes anyway to give a little intro talk at the beginning of every day of the live period. So look forward. I hope you'll be there. Again, it's 8th through the 12th. And the other thing I want to leave you with is we're still accepting contributed papers and posters. So all you have to do is go to pittcon.org. And there's a link on there that tells you how to submit your contributed paper or poster. So and that will be open through mid-January. So please consider attending. Love to have you participate in our show. And
we are running a little long, but if somebody did ask, how are we going to do the virtual expo? If you want to try to.
Okay, so a question came up about the virtual expo. Now I hit that a little bit there, but the one thing I didn't mention, and I should have, is if you've been to a virtual show, I really hope you'll see ours, because ours will be like none you've ever seen before. No large show has used the platform we are using. We're partnering with a company called LabRoots. You may have heard of them. They've done small shows in the past, but we will have the most inviting, engaging, participative virtual show that is available using modern technology. And what we did there is we looked at, when we saw it was coming, earlier this year, right? So we watched the other shows out there. One challenge other shows had is time. They didn't have the time to really put together their show with as much detail as they'd like. So we took advantage of that, right? So we're still a few months out on Pittcon. So we really invested in finding the best platform provider we could find, which is the LabRoots, and they developed a platform for us that again I think is the best I've ever seen. So I hope you'll feel the same way. But what will Expo be like? What I mean by that is that they'll be very interactive. You'll see a welcome video as soon as you enter. You'll see avatars there that are the booth reps themselves. You'll see things you can do immediately. You can open Zoom rooms for a video chat. You can have a live chat by chat box. There's all forms of downloadable information. There's live demos going on. In other words, every experience except touching someone, we've really tried to put into the booth experience for our exhibitors. So, why do that? Because we want every question you might have to be answerable. We want you to have the kind of experience that allows you to come up with the best questions. I know what it's like to go into a booth and not really have a question until you get there and see what's there. And we really work to try and create that same experience.
One more quick one, and somebody just said this was a great presentation. And do we have any other short webinars coming up before Pittcon?
A good question. So the question was, are there any more webinars? And yes, so this was, I believe, the 4th one of our series, and there's 10, as I showed you before, there's 10 tracks. So they'll be, these webinars will continue right up to Pittcon. So stay tuned. There'll be more of these, and there'll be a similar format, hopefully like this, just trying to have a little bit of fun, share some information, and tell you a little bit about Pittcon. But again, I've overstepped my time. If you're still hanging on, I really appreciate it, and hope to see you there. If you have any questions, fire them to us. You can reach us through pittcon.org. Thank you very much.
It was really fun. Good job.
Should be gone. There's down. Yeah, I think I did. Oh, it's okay.
It means I ended my webinar, but not the whole thing. It's right next to, it's like leave the webinar or end it.
You get it.
Show that.
Where do I do that? Here, go ahead. Just close window, maybe? Oh, I thought I did that.